Hello, class. Welcome to your first lecture. This is your theater practicum in production management. This is the very first semester this course has been offered at ACC, and you're the first group of students to go through it. So this is going to be a real learning process for all of us. I'm not going to pretend that I know exactly every step in this journey, but I know where we're headed, and I have a pretty good map to get us there. That doesn't mean we may have a few detours on the way. So here's me. At the outset, because this is a brand new class, I want you all to know that if there's anything that I cover too quickly or skip over or you don't understand, please don't hesitate to let me know. The best way to get in touch with me for this course is via my ACC email account. Here it is on the screen right here, Jason Tremblay at austincc.edu. Make sure to write that down. It's your primary lifeline for the course. If you email me, I will see your message immediately, but I'm out working on the road a lot, so be patient for a reply. I try to promise to get back in touch with you in 24 hours, but sometimes that's not always possible. In addition to this being the very first time we offer this course, we're also dealing with a very compacted schedule this semester. We only have 8 weeks together, so in that 8 weeks, I'm going to try to teach you what could be a whole series of courses at other colleges. So we're going to move fast and we're going to cover a lot of material. For this reason, it's really important that you keep up. While I'm generally really fair when it comes to dealing with makeup work, this semester is so short that if you get behind, things could really start to snowball for you very quickly. Because we only have 8 weeks, we're not going to be able to cover every topic in as much detail as we would like. I will, however, provide you with more detailed information about many subjects, though, that if you want, you can continue to learn more about that particular subject. And when we talk about how the course is structured, you'll see that for each lecture, you'll have some materials that are required and others, so you have access to the material are available but not required as part of the course. It'll all make sense when we get started, I promise. So for this first lecture, we're going to keep things pretty simple and introductory. I'll talk a little bit about myself and my history in theater and in production management. We're going to talk about how the course is structured, and I've already alluded to, because this course is completely new, the subjects we tackle and the amount of time we devote to each one can and will change throughout the semester. Next, we'll start talking about our first subject, which is very simply, what is production management? Who is a production manager and what do they do? Why is it important for me to have these skills, and how do they translate, or how could they translate to other fields? Finally, we're going to do a complete rundown of all the different jobs that you traditionally see in a theater company. Why? Because as a production manager, one of your primary duties is to work with and manage the entire staff of a theater company. And to do that, you first need to know who everyone is and what their roles are within a company. Okay, so I'm going to start by talking about myself a little bit. I think it's important that you know who is guiding you through this journey, what my background is, what experience I have, and why in the world should you listen to me, this weird disembodied voice coming through your computer. So my name is Jason Tremblay. I'm 38 years old. I've been teaching for about 4 years now at ACC. I'm the one who originally pitched this idea of a production management program to the department, and I created most of the classes for this new production management degree program that we're launching this year. I've been working in theater for about 15 years, and while we do, as theater makers, a great job, I think, of training students to be actors and directors and writers, very rarely do we teach them exactly what it takes to actually start and run a theater company. I just thought I would throw this in. Here's another picture of me, and this is my son Oliver. He is about 12 weeks old in this picture. So if you can't get in touch with me, maybe I'm out playing with this guy. I'm primarily a playwright. I've been writing and producing plays since I graduated from college 16 years ago. I received my MFA in playwriting at UT and taught playwriting there for a couple semesters while I was in grad school. My plays have been produced around the country and are published by Play Scripts and Youth Plays. I write scripts and plays for both for adults and for young audiences. In the next few weeks, I have 3 full-length plays opening around the country, one in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, one in Phoenix, and another one, which you're going to learn a lot more about here in Austin. I've also written several feature films, 2 of which have been fully produced and are out there in the world if you want to go try to hunt them down. So here's just some pictures from some of my productions. In the top corner, it's a play called Katrina the Girl Who Wanted Her Name Back. It was produced at UT, Adventure Stage Chicago, and the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. There's a poster for another play called Boom for Real, and another image of a guy painting. That's from a play of mine called The Virgin with 10,000 Arrows. And here on the right, we see a poster for a play that I have coming up in September and October here in Austin, The Call of the Wild. A play that you guys are all going to be working on. Okay, so I'm a writer, you get that, right? But how in the world do I have anything to do with production management, right? What does writing have to do with this class? How am I qualified to teach you about production management? Well, that's because in addition to being a working playwright, I'm also a professional stage and production manager. Here's some pictures for you. I started out as a stage manager for large music events and festivals, and I've managed many bands over the years. For 4 years, I managed this in the bottom right of your screen. This is the auditorium storage stage for South by Southwest. Pretty much managed everything that you see in that picture there. I'm not sure what band that is. It may be the Strokes. I've also managed the main stage for the X Games. That's me in the middle there with the flaming lips. The last big show I managed was for Kanye West, which is the next picture of there. You can kind of see the lights and the lights on the stage. My work as a stage manager also led me to more production management roles. I'm currently the festival manager for the Moon Tower Comedy Festival here in Austin. There's a picture of that there in the center of the screen. I also manage events for the United Nations Foundation. And this past year, I was hired by the DNC to manage a couple events for both the president and the vice president here in Austin and for the president in New York. And I often thought when I got that gig, if you could manage a production for the president, then you could manage a production for anything. And that's certainly true. But the converse, I think, is also true. I think it's very important. And that is that if you can manage a small production, a short play, for example, you can also manage an event on a really large scale, like some of the pictures you see here. The skills are the exact same. The only difference is a matter of scale. So instead of ordering $20 worth of lights, maybe you order $20,000 worth of lights. But at the end of the day, the job is still the same. So that's a little bit about me, so you know who I am and kind of what my experience is. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the structure of the class. In the syllabus, you saw a brief outline of how the class will operate and the subjects that we're going to cover and the order that we're going to do that in. Here's a simple course schedule. The course is going to be broken up into 8 units, and for each unit you're going to have a lecture, either reading material or videos to watch, and then a short quiz for that unit. If the quiz seems like an arbitrary thing that, to make sure that you're doing your work, you're absolutely right, because that's the only way in an online class that I can make sure that you're keeping up with the lectures and the reading materials. They're open book, and you shouldn't worry about them at all. If you do your work, they won't be a problem. They're very easy, and you can take them multiple times. You'll also have 2 major projects this semester, one that's going to be due in week 4, and the other at the end of the semester. The goal or the theme of this class is for you to be able to walk out of here in 8 weeks with all the tools that you need to start your own theater company or to produce your own play or show. And your projects are both geared toward that goal. We're going to talk about them a bit more in depth as those project deadlines get closer. But the idea is for the first project, it's going to be a proposal for an event or a play that you want to produce. And then the final project will be a much more detailed game plan on how you're going to pull that off. Now, these events may or may not ever happen. It's totally fine to see these projects if you want. It's just an exercise. But my goal is that if you wish, by the end of the semester, you're able to leave this class with everything that you need to put up a successful production. There's also a lab component to this course. This semester, I'm directing and producing a one-person adaptation of The Call of the Wild. It's an adaptation I created. Been working on it for about a year now with this actor here, Noel Gollin. Here you see on the left. We're going to talk about this show much more in depth. It was created for one reason, and that was to tour nationally. This ACC production is a kickoff of sorts and a way for us to test out the material in front of an audience. This production also is going to serve as the lab for this class. It's going to be our way to get some actual hands-on experience and the management of an actual production. So by signing up for this class, you've been assigned a role as a production assistant for this show. You're going to be fully credited. That means you're not only going to leave the class with the skills and tools you need to manage a production, you're also going to have a real-world production credit that you can put on your resume. As a production assistant, there are a number of different roles that you can be assigned for the production. Some of you may be working in the box office. Some of you may be helping out backstage. It's really my hope that we'll be able to rotate people around so you'll have a chance to work as many different jobs as possible in the theater. Because we all have different work, school, life schedules, I'll really be good at trying to work with each of you individually to figure out the best schedule and role for you in the show. So I don't want you to freak out about it. I don't want to worry about it right now. When it gets a little closer to time, we'll really start to, and I'll talk with you each individually to figure out a way that I can make this work with you. And if I've said before, this is a brand new class and brand new concept, so we're going to be doing a lot of figuring it out as we go. But my primary focus will be on giving you the best opportunity for you to be successful and to meet your goals. Okay, so we're going to dive right in and ask the question, what is a production manager? And this here is the image I want you to keep in your head. Right there. This is what I want you to have in your head. This is a wheel, and the production manager I want you to think of as the hub. Right? You have all these spokes that have very critical roles, and as the hub of the production, it's your job to hold all these different things together. The production manager is responsible for budgeting, scheduling, and coordinating all production departments. This is the official description, if you will, from the American Association of Community Theaters. The production manager is responsible for ensuring that all aspects of the production are completed within a budget, according to the designer and director's wishes, and a time for the first public performance. He or she oversees the cost effectiveness and planning of the entire production process. Again, I'm going to show you this wheel again because we're going to keep coming back to this image all semester long. It's the most simple way to think about it. As a production manager, you're really the hub of the production. So we're just talking about some of the primary responsibilities or roles of a production manager. Securing the rights to present the play from the royalty house or publisher. That's very simply deciding what you want to produce. And we'll go over royalties and the different ways of finding materials, including commissioning new work, putting out calls for scripts, for proposals, and negotiating with publishers. I've put up shows and found material to produce using all these different tactics. And we're going to go over each one of these very specifically. We have a whole section that we're just going to do on this first sentence on royalties and rights. Budgeting. We're going to be creating simple Excel spreadsheets for our productions, our proposed productions. If you don't have Excel, we can talk about some alternatives you can use. In addition to budgeting, we're also going to talk in depth about fundraising and various tactics, including crowdsourcing and fundraising events. Deciding dates and times and venues. We'll have a unit all on the different types of venues, and the part of your first project will be deciding on and doing some research about a venue that you pick. Forming a production team. Later on in this lecture, today we're going to talk about the different roles in the theater. Scheduling production meetings, rehearsals, and performances. We're going to talk all about events that will go into creating your production calendars. Rehearsal venues, first calls, it's your first meeting with the entire team that you kind of run, the rehearsal process and preparation, and then finally financial accounting and the show's expenses and revenues. We're going to talk about all of these much more in depth throughout this semester. The single most important responsibility of the production manager is the development of a highly motivated and collaborative production team. And if you're going to manage all of these artists and keep them together, you need to know who they are and what they do. So a key component of being a production manager is that you don't have to be an expert in any of the departments that you manage. That's why you hire great people to do those jobs, right? But you need to have a working understanding of what each of those jobs entail and the vocabulary to have productive conversations with each member of your team. You don't need to know, for example, the inner workings of a particular model of a lighting instrument, but you need to know the right person to call when it needs to be fixed. Okay, so We're going to start now, and we're going to go over all the different roles in a theater. And as you will start to see quite quickly, it can become very complicated. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of moving parts in a theater company. What I've put together is a kind of standard or basic model of what I think the traditional roles in the theater are. Now, every theater is completely different. Every situation is different. Some of these theaters you may find yourself working in will have more positions than we're going to talk about here. Some of them will have way fewer positions. Some of them you'll have one person that maybe is doing multiple jobs. Not only is every theater different, but every production is different. You know, a single theater could produce a one-man show, and then their next show is a 20-piece musical. Those are very different in terms of what happens behind the scenes in the business and of a production manager and managing those events. So what we're going to talk about here is just kind of a basic outline of some of the roles that you'll find in almost every theater, because as I said, as a production manager, your primary job is to manage all of these different people, to be as the coordinator between them, and again, to be the hub of that wheel to kind of hold all these different things together. So the first two people that I want to talk about is the producer and the artistic director. Here's my funny little picture of a producer here with his top hat on. This is not generally how theater producers dress. A lot of times you can just think of the theater, the producer as the boss, right? The person that oversees all aspects of a theatrical production. In many cases, the producer and the production manager are the same person, right? The person that is making the decisions on what shows you want to do, what venues you want to use, what the season is for that particular theater, is very often the same person, aka the production manager, who's actually making all those things happen. The second person is the artistic director. In most theaters are run by their artistic director, and they're responsible for the creative choices in the theater. They can direct plays. Sometimes they choose an outside director. They often choose a theatrical season to match the theater's artistic mission. So in the theater, the producer, the artistic director, and/or the director, and the production manager are kind of the top of the totem pole, if you will, of the theater management system. Very often, as I've said before, you'll find sometimes in smaller theaters, one person will do all three of these roles. And sometimes in larger theaters, you'll have an artistic director, an associate artistic director, and then a particular director. A big theater might be doing 10 shows in the season. The artistic director might, direct one of them and hire 9 other people to direct the other ones. The second thing I want to talk to you a little bit about is literary managers. The literary department in a theater. We have a whole unit on literary departments. I think it's the Unit 3. We're going to talk about finding materials and figuring out what kind of plays you're going to do. Actually, that's Unit 2. The literary department is usually run by a literary manager. They choose scripts for production. They read scripts that are submitted by writers and or their agents. And they also maintain those relationships with the writers and their agents over time. And also, very importantly, they oversee the new play development programs at theaters, including readings and workshops. So most theaters, certainly not all of them, but most theaters do some sort of development of new work. Sometimes a theater will be committed just to new work. Sometimes they'll have an 8-show season and have 1 or 2 new plays. Well, those new plays that they have are all created through a very lengthy, as a playwright, I would say overly complicated process of new play development. And it's the literary manager that oversees that. The literary manager also tends to have some assistants. Here I've written down readers. A literary department at a major theater can receive hundreds and hundreds of scripts in a given year, and they often utilize readers to read through the scripts and make recommendations about what the literary manager might actually want to look at. If you have a pile of 200 scripts, a literary manager can only give attention to maybe 5 or 10 of them, real detailed attention. So they use readers to kind of filter through the mass of scripts and materials that many theaters receive every year. Every production has a whole team of designers. Depending on the size and scale of the production, you can have many designers. You could have one designer. You could have an artistic director who's also a designer. And then those designers can also have assistants. We're going to talk about each one of these throughout the semester in more detail. When we're talking about designers, we talk about a lighting designer, set designers, costume designers, audio designers, creating original scores. Oftentimes for productions, prop designers. More and more these days you see projections used in live theater, and we certainly use lots of projections in live audio, or recorded audio in the Call of the Wild, so you'll get a chance to see some of those. The designers are all are primarily under the purview of the artistic director, but the job of hiring those designers and the job of making sure those designs are implemented fall under the purview of the production manager. Of course, you have your talent. You have your actors, your performers, and your musicians. Here is a picture of some puppeteers from the musical Avenue Q. I put that here because it's important to remember that in the theater, your talent can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. They may actually be puppets, they may be puppeteers, they may be actors, they could be dancers, they could be animals, even in some cases. All of these fall under talent. They fall under the purview of the artistic director. But again, as the production manager, it's your job to hire, budget for, and to take care of all of your talent. The stage manager. The stage manager I like to think of as really the person, once the show is up and going, they're the person that makes it happen. They're the person that runs the show. Very often, most often in theater, once the show is up and running, after the opening night, the director gives the show over to the stage manager, and very often the director leaves and flies back to wherever they live. And for the rest of the run, it's up to the stage manager to run the show. The stage managers also help run rehearsals. And the stage manager is really the production manager's best friend. The stage manager is on the ground person that makes everything happen. I have a funny little picture here as an anatomy of a stage manager. They have a brain to know everybody's lines. They have ground. Their ground they should be worshipped. They definitely keep a secret supply of gaff tape. We'll have a whole section about stage management. We'll talk more about that then. Your technical director. The technical director has the daily responsibility for the technical operations of the theater or a performing arts center, including light, sound, set construction, and maintenance. And under the purview of the technical director are the carpenters. And those are the people that build the sets. The technical director is really in charge of making sure that all the designs of the designers actually happen. You have the design, primarily the construction of the set, and things such as maybe screens or other set elements that you might have, all fall under the purview of the technical director. The production manager also will be working directly with the marketing department, and the marketing department will utilize graphic designers. Here's some. This is from the Seattle Rep Theater, just one of their basic kind of programs. The production manager oversees all that. In addition to the technical director, the production manager manages the master electrician. Master electrician is in charge of all the lighting in the theater space. They have electricians, audio, and video technicians that work for them. Bigger houses will also have costume shops. And those costume shops will have a costume shop supervisor and someone that just, oversees the costume shop. They also have drapers and stitchers. Those are the people that actually create the costumes. So while the costume designer will design these costumes, it's up to the draper, stitchers, costume shop supervisor to actually make them happen. Okay, as I said before, the production manager oversees a lot of people. And as you can see just from this image here, it can be very complicated. There's lots and lots of people, and your job, remember, is not to know how to do all these jobs, but to have a good understanding of what each one is and what each person does and how they fit into the whole of the theater. We have one last role that I want to talk about. We all know what a playwright does. It's the person that writes the play. Sometimes they may be a living playwright and they're very involved in the production process. You could also be producing Shakespeare and be dealing with a playwright that's been dead for 100 years. But I want to just take a moment here to talk about one role in the theater that you may not be as familiar with, and that's the role of a dramaturg. So what is a dramaturg? This is from the Literary Managers and Dramaturgs of the Americas website. A dramaturg usually falls in the purview of the literary department. The job of a dramaturg really falls in 2 or 3 categories. The first is in research and development. They help develop the mission of the theater and help plan the season. They certainly help look for scripts. You can have a dramaturg even if it's not a new play. For example, a lot of times for older plays, a dramaturg will be responsible for doing research into the script, into the times. Very often the dramaturg will give a presentation at production meetings to give information to the designers and actors to give them more of a historical context for a show. Dramaturgs also play a very integral part in the new play development process. A dramaturg traditionally is the go-between between a playwright and their agent and the theater company. Dramaturgs often will go out and recruit writers or search for material that they know will fit their theater's mission. They can solicit scripts from writers and agents. They can work with the literary department to read and evaluate scripts. They can help negotiate with agents, and they can help in commissioning new work. They can also help organize the new play development process, particularly when it comes to workshops for playwrights. For example, when a playwright comes in and does a workshop of a play and they put it in front of an audience for the first time, the dramaturg can be really helpful in helping the playwright narrow down exactly what their goals of that workshop are. What questions do we want answered from this audience? What are we trying to find out? The dramaturg can help the playwright in that production process. And then finally, in that way, in developing and fostering new play development, they help bring new plays into a full production. So there you have it, our master list, of org chart of all the roles that a production manager works with, and all the different people that a production manager works with and manages. From the artistic producer and the director to the literary department, the marketing department, the designers, the stage manager, the technical director, the electricians, the costume shop supervisors, and the literary managers and dramaturgs. These are all people that the production manager oversees. All right, well, you've made it this far. I'm going to call it an end to this lecture. Make sure to complete the quiz that's posted on Blackboard for this lecture, and I'll be back and talk to you again for Unit 2.